So what the heck is retention marketing? Give us an insight.
Yeah, so for me, kind of like what I said, it's just basically all the channels that we use to keep existing customers coming back and buying more. And I think for me, the big three are always going to be email marketing, SMS, so via your text messaging, and then direct mail, which has been around for like what 100 years or more, and it's still a thriving channel. Use it a lot with my clients. And along those two, you have like loyalty, subscription, apps, things like that. But those are the big three: email, SMS, and direct mail. I think I would also throw in there customer service, which we can get into as well. That might be honestly one of the biggest retention marketing channels. If you think about like all the big brands out there, why you keep coming back to Amazon so often, the customer service is amazing. So that kind of comes down to like my core philosophy around all those channels is really just how do people feel when they interact with your brand? And that's kind of like the core essence of retention marketing. So every email that goes out, every SMS goes out, it should kind of develop that relationship with people and just make them like really happy to like, they see your name in their inbox, they see your text message, a postcard comes and they should just be like, oh, cool. Like glad to see Patrick in my mailbox. So I think that's really the big thing about it is sometimes it's a little bit longer. It's not as like instantaneous as paid traffic where you're paying, you're seeing a conversion. Um, some instances, it could take 10, 20 touches before someone converts. I mean, sometimes people join your email list, they've already bought mentally, but like the timing just isn't right in their life. And you're just consistently showing up. They see your subject line, they read an email, and then it just kind of like accumulates over time. And then they end up making that purchase, coming back, sharing that with their friends. And, I think that's really kind of the core of it.
Very nice. So what's like the big two kind of takeaways when someone asks you, if you bump into someone on the street, like what should they know, like why it's important and like, you know, how to how to elevate it? Like what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely important because it's 5 to 7 times cheaper to retain a customer than to get a new one. I mean, with Meta and Google, the prices are always going up. They can fluctuate drastically. So if it's November election season, the prices are going to go through the roof. So it's going to raise your cost of acquisition, lower your ROAS as well, or make that higher, lower, sorry. So I think that's it. It's just a cheaper way to bring people back. I like to think about it as like almost like a cheaper source of traffic because if you have that email list, your customer list, anytime you feel like making money, you can just send an email, send an SMS, send a postcard, and you're gonna get something back from it a lot cheaper than you would having to pay Mark Zuckerberg or anyone else to like use their platform. And also just like the stat I was seeing the other day is like 5% boost in your retention marketing can increase your profit by like 25%, 90%, depending on what you're doing on the back end. So that back end is sort of like when you think of like the old school direct response marketing guys, it's always like whoever can pay the most to acquire a customer wins. And that's only true if your retention marketing is solid. So like, you break even on your first sale, and then the sales after that is where you start to see that profit. So if you have retention marketing dialed in, then okay, we can spend, I don't know, $50 to get someone because we know their lifetime value is going to be like $300, $1,000, whatever that is. So I think that's just like kind of one of the hidden engines there is that it keeps everything moving forward.
So it sounds like this can be an alternative to like higher paid advertising on like Meta, etc. Is that the kind of the point of this?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously can't have one without the other. You need to be bringing new people into your list, to your site for the acquisition side. But, email marketing, SMS, direct mail, they can also act as acquisition channels. But I think they're at their best when it's like you got people coming to your website from a Facebook ad. They come, they check it out, you get their email address for maybe a lead magnet, a discount or something like that, and then they go off. So instead of having to pay more money to get them back to your website from like retargeting or like a YouTube ad or something, you can just start via automations or just ongoing campaigns. You can get that person back to your website. So it's going to make, oh, I had a guy I worked with for a long time on Facebook, and it's really just kind of like making all the front end way more efficient. So if the back end is dialed in, like you're going to see everything get way easier on the front end acquisition.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you you inserted this title slide like retention is the highest ROI lever and why the list is the asset. Could you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of like for me, like when you're buying a business or you're gonna take over a company, I think the absolute most important thing is the email list, and more specifically, it's going to be the customer list because that's owned traffic. And I always try to make that distinction with people because when you're using Facebook, Meta, or whatever, you're renting that traffic. Like you're just paying them so that you can show up on their platform. With an email list or a customer list, that's yours forever. You can take it, you can send emails to it. Obviously, there's a little bit of a cost for your email platform, but compared to spending on like meta ads, it's going to be a fraction of that cost. So it's always going to be the highest ROI channel. And it's just like, again, the customer list is where the money is because these are people who have already purchased from you. They're maybe 5 or 7 times more likely to buy again. And at that point, you don't have to even really send front end advertising to these people. You can just keep them on your email list, have automations and things going like that. And then that's where you're kind of going to see that really that profit coming in because you don't have to maybe give them discounts or anything like that. So I think the big thing is that it's really the own traffic channel. And then it's also, it's going to get more profitable the longer you use it and the longer you have it because if let's say the acquisition costs suddenly go up, and I see this all the time, Q4 rolls around, it's Black Friday season, and it gets really expensive to advertise and bring people onto your site. And when that happens, you can kind of level it out with sending, more emails. And it's like, for example, if also you have to scale back on your advertising, let's say you're just doing it for 1 month, you can kind of try to keep the revenue consistent by balancing that out with sending more emails, SMS, postcards, things like that. So, I mean, there's like very few problems that can't be solved by just sending more emails. I think that if you just, at the simplest, if you were just sending an email every single day to your list, you'd probably be like 90% ahead of most people that are doing email marketing in some form.
Gotcha. So you think email, like cold email, like when you say what kind of emails are we sending?
So yeah, I don't do cold email where like you scrape a list and you're blasting it to people for getting leads like that. But this is people who've come to your website and they're either going to be like a lead or a prospect. So they've given you their email for, I don't know, they want to book an appointment with you, or on the e-commerce side, they want a discount, they want like a lead magnet, and then you're just following up with them. And then once they purchase, again, they're still on your list, but now they're a customer. So for me, that's going to be way more valuable. And same thing, like when you think about like an asset, those are like automations that you can build in your email platform that are just running 24/7. So I have some clients that I've worked with 3 years ago, and they're still using automations that I built for them to this day. And they go in a few times a year and they like update it or tweak some things, but those things have been running every single day, making sales. So millions of dollars coming in from something they did 3 years ago, and they can just kind of focus on other areas of their business.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah. Um, as someone who has played around with cold emails as well as, marketing emails, etc., it's definitely a new space to me. So just wanted to kind of bring it full circle for some of those who may not know what a cold email is, etc. So,
Oh
that's
yeah,
helpful.
I get asked about it all the time too if I do cold email. I do it, personally for myself if I'm reaching out to people, but I try to be more selective about it. So instead of, I know a lot of people that use like Clay or Apollo and they blast out like 5,000 emails a day, but I'll I'll kind of get on someone's email list, see what they're doing, and then like I'll be very selective about how I reach out to people, and I find that's a little better because it people can tell when you send the same message to a bunch of people like that. So yeah, it's a lot easier when it's like warm email because I think that's the what makes retention marketing, email marketing so powerful. It's more of like a consent-based platform. So they know you're going to market to them. They come to your site, they put you their email in, and it's obvious like what's going to happen next. And I think that's more powerful than like, than anything else. So, but also with that is sort of like the trust that you're not going to just start sending, 3 emails a day of like promotions and stuff that's irrelevant, which is a strategy that like, someone like Dick's Sporting Goods use. But, when you're getting millions of people on your email list monthly, like you could do that kind of churn and burn style. But for smaller brands, you got to be a little more like strategic about what you're sending.
That's right. And before we get into a lot of the granular, I did want to get to the $1 million meat horror story. We kind of touched upon it on our pre-call, but before some listeners have to head out for meetings, etc., let's just kind of jump into it. So, could you just give us some insight? Give us the story.
Absolutely. So this happened about maybe 3 weeks ago. I was auditing a prospective client, and I get into their account. And what I always do is I have like a 53-point audit that I go through just to check everything, because with email marketing, it can be very technical. So there's a lot of things going on. So even a lot of times founders, even maybe like CMOs, they don't really know what's going on inside the platform. Maybe they don't have the experience with it, or they just don't have the time to jump in. And again, it can be kind of technical. So in this case, I went in and I was auditing the account, and they were using Shopify and Klaviyo, which is probably the biggest platform for Shopify users. And I was going in there, and as I was doing the audit, and first of all, I noticed they didn't have any automation set up. So nothing for if someone abandons their cart, nothing if someone gives you their email address. And so that was already like a big like red flag. But then as I was going through there and looking at their database, I was like, I almost had to stop for a second, because I was looking, and like the last person in there, it was like when the date that they were added was like 2023. And I was like, that can't be right. That can't be right. So I was like going through it. I was checking everything in the platform. I went to their website. I put my email address in, and I realized that they had an integration with Klaviyo and Shopify that had basically been broken for 2 years, and no one noticed. So for 2 years, every single person that put their email address in just kind of like it was getting saved into Shopify, but it wasn't going back into the email platform. Anyone who purchased a product wasn't getting added into the database too. So you had like 2 years worth of emails that were just kind of like sitting around going cold. And I was sitting there, and we part of like our proceed or like our process was we were working with them to kind of warm up the list, because since they've been emailing people, but their list wasn't really growing, so it was kind of stale. And we were doing about $3,000 per campaign that we were sending out after we did a little work with them. And that's if you're doing like 3 to 4 emails a week, that's like $10,000 a week. Over the course of 2 years, that's like almost $1 million in potential revenue that was just like not there, because they didn't have these new people coming in. They weren't really sending the campaigns to them, and just missing out on those email automations alone, because email automations can usually be 40% of that total revenue, like for email, and they had nothing set up. So that's like probably another $1 million that's, just gone. So total of that, that's probably like around $2 million of revenue that just was like leaking. So for me, I was like, man, imagine if you bought that business, and like you look at the top line revenue, and they're doing, 10, $15 million a year, and everything's good. But then when you jump in there, you realize now you have 2 years worth of customers that maybe they came back, maybe they didn't. And it's very hard. If you have people sitting around for 2 years, it's very challenging to like warm the list back up. There's a lot of technical stuff to that, but also just from like a customer standpoint, it's like they just don't hear from you. So you're just hoping that they're going to come back on their own. Or again, this is where it would make paid traffic more expensive. You're going to have to pay money to get these people back to your site. So yeah, once I saw that, I was kind of shocked, and no one noticed either. So CEO, CMO, head of marketing, no one noticed this.
Really? Wow. So I think, you know, given a lot of the people listening are thinking about buying businesses, they may own a business. What are some things to look out for when you're doing like this initial audit if you don't have someone as like a professional like you? What should they be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I got that like 7 questions that they can ask. Because again, it's very technical, but this is why I kind of came up with these 7 questions you could ask people. And just based on their replies, you're gonna understand, like you can start to sense whether or not things are going well or not. So I would say like the first thing I always ask them is like, I mean, the first thing you should do is get on their email list. So put your email address in there somewhere, and just start seeing what the emails look like. Do they send you any emails? No, nothing. Does the email go to spam instantly? That would be like a huge red flag for me. But the questions I would just ask their team is, how many campaigns are you sending to your list per month? And to me, a campaign is just like something you would send, like if you have a new product, or you're just featuring stories, testimonials, things like that. So these are a manual send that you're going to send out to your list. So I would ask them how often they're doing that. Like how many do you send per month? And if they say like one or two, that to me is a red flag because they're not engaging with their list. And with email marketing, you don't, and SMS, anything like that, you you don't want to let the list kind of go cold because it can have some technical implications, like with going to spam more frequently, and also just if people start to forget about you and you're not top of mind. I think another big one is, and this will kind of reveal the systems that they have going on. I don't think most people would ask them this, so it would just be like, what's your current process from going from an idea for execution for email? Like, ask them what it is. Like what does that look like? Like, who comes up with the idea? Who's writing the copy? Who's designing the email if they have a designer? Who's setting it up? Like, just to kind of understand what that is, because I found with a lot of brands, they don't have a process. So they'll kind of like sit around and they're like, oh man, we only sent one email this week. Like, Labor Day is coming up, so let's just do a promotion, and they like whip something together and send it out. So they end up only sending like, only around the major holidays, and the rest of the year they're not doing anything with the list. So it's kind of wasteful. So that'll just let you know kind of how their team is. And then kind of part of that would be like, do you have a email campaign calendar? Like, just ask them like what does that look like? Because that kind of then shows like the planning and thought around it. And if they're like, oh yeah, we send, 2 or 3 emails a week. We talk about, like big benefits of our products. We have a newsletter or something like that. Then that's something that's good to me. If they don't have any campaign calendar, that's when I start to get a little worried about like what if it's been kind of neglected. Um, the other one I would ask them is, what automations, email automations or SMS, like do you have going right now? And this can vary depending on what kind of business you're buying. If you're buying like a D2C kind of e-commerce business, there would be like a welcome flow, abandoned checkout, something like that. If it's SaaS, they would have maybe like I mean, you can divide all these into like pre-purchase and post-purchase, but I would just ask them just to see like what they have. Like, can you tell me which automations you have running? If they have nothing, then again, that's kind of something I would look out for. And then the follow-up to that would be like, when's the last time you updated your automations? Because I was talking with another friend, and I mean, I've seen this myself, is some people set up the automations like I did, and they'll let them just kind of run unattended. And I got into one account a few years ago, and they had an automation that had basically been broken for a year because someone put the filter wrong. It's a very technical thing, and it was just broken. And again, no one noticed it. But that's like 20,000 people that didn't get a follow-up email to their first purchase. So if you ask like when's the last time they updated it, if they don't know or it's been a while, then it's definitely worth like, talking to someone like me or getting someone else who knows technically to kind of poke around in there because there could be broken links, automations, things like that. And then I would also ask them, and this is a good one to ask because sometimes, you know, how many people are on your email list is a good one, but it can be a little tricky because someone might say, "Oh, I have 1 million people on my list." And you're like, "All right, that's amazing." But then I would ask them like, how many people have opened or clicked an email in the last like 30 days? Because you want to see how many people are engaging. Because if someone has 1 million people on their list, but they don't send emails, or half that list is like 10 years old, like it's not going to be as valuable as you might think. So that helps too. And then the last one, this is like really kind of technical, but if you ask it that you're going to show them that you kind of know what's going on, I would just ask them, do you have Google Postmaster tool set up? And that's simply just Gmail. It's a way to monitor Gmail. Are your emails going to spam? What's your reputation? And I ask a lot of people this question, and most of them say no. So to me, it's just like someone, they might not have someone on the team who's technical or paying attention to what's going on. But I think if you just ask those questions in any format, um, you'd have a pretty good understanding of what you're walking into.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack there. So I think if you're not familiar with the sort of the jargon around emails, automation is just like quite literally emailing automatically. And Ben, feel free to chime in if I say things
Yeah.
wrong. Open rate is just simply the number of emails that are actually opened. Um, and then
hmm
spam is emails that go directly to spam. Any other jargon people might need to know as we kind of go through this?
Yeah, I would say automations for me, it's like triggered by something. So for example, you put your email address in on a form, it should trigger what I would call like a welcome series where there's like 10 emails maybe that are queued up to kind of like go to someone. The biggest one would be like a cart abandon. So like you're checking out, on your favorite store, you got your pants in your cart, and then like, I don't know, your kid spills something and you run off and you like leave the window open. um, there should be an email that gets sent automatically to like get you back to that. So those are what the automations are. And yeah, same with open rate. That's a good one. It's just what percentage of people are opening it, like a click rate, how many people are clicking on your email. I think those are the big ones. And same with spam. I mean, deliverability, we don't have to go down that wormhole, but that's like a whole, that's just literally, is your email going to the inbox, going to spam, or is it just getting blocked outright? So I think those are some of the big ones here. And if I think of anything else, I'll bring it in. But I think those are the big ones just to kind of, you'll hear a lot if you're around email marketing people.
Yeah, it's helpful. And I kind of DIY'd marketing and learned all of these things on YouTube, etc. So I know if I joined, today for the first time, I would be like, my head would be spinning. Um, Curious on, you said Google Postmaster. Could you just double click on that? What is that exactly?
Yeah. So you want me to
Because
open
I've
it up here
never heard
for you,
that.
or show it to you?
Yeah, I've never heard that word before. So,
Basically Google Postmaster tools, Yahoo has one now. It's basically they connects to your website and it basically just shows you your domain reputation with Gmail. So you kind of think about it like a credit score, and it's either high, medium, low, or like terrible. And so Gmail like looks at the emails that you're sending and looks at how people are interacting with your emails. Are they opening it? Are they clicking it? How much time are they reading it? There's like it's a kind of a black box. It's like algorithms. Like people are always complaining about algorithms. In the email world, it's always like the Gmail spam filters, things like that. And it's basically just a way to monitor. They'll show you, is your reputation high? Is it low? What percentage of your emails are actually getting reported spam by people clicking it? And like I'll give you a good example. Like I had one client that I worked with, and when we were doing our initial like audit, I noticed that their welcome email, when I put in my email address to like their pop-up form, it just went straight to spam. I
hmm.
think I might have cut out there, but it went straight to spam. And then we jumped on to Google Postmaster tools on the call, and we were looking at it, and I was able, like, first of all, I was surprised they had it set up, but then I was able to see like there's another section in there. Like there was a problem with authentication, which is super technical. You basically have to authenticate your site because Gmail wants to make sure people aren't sending spam. Because like 90% of spam attacks happen from people just taking over your domain and sending emails because like it's the easiest way to do it. So that's why Gmail is like protective about it. So what we realized is that they hadn't authenticated like emails coming from their customer service platform. And so because of that, Gmail was like, we don't trust this person. So we fixed that in like 2 days. Their deliverability, or their domain reputation went up to like high just from that technical fix. But that's something that can be like crippling to a business. Like I have a friend down here in Atlanta who they were head of a deliverability agency, and they're like, I mean, I thought I knew a lot about this, but when I talked to her, it was just like I realized I don't know, it's like talking to like an IT person or something. But the other horror story is like same thing. You get blocked by like Gmail, and she was working with some dentist, and like they lost half their income for a month because their emails just weren't getting delivered because they didn't authenticate something. So they were following up with people for, I forget, it was like braces or something like that, and just like the emails were just outright getting blocked, not even showing up. So it's just one of those things where you got to pay attention to it. And you'll hear deliverability a lot too, which is just, again, where is your email going? Is it going to an inbox, spam, or is it getting blocked? So,
Gotcha. Yeah, when I put, let's see if I can throw up mine. I just
oh, here
added
we go.
mine. I just
Yes.
added mine. I don't know if it takes time or if I did it the wrong way, but I basically just threw in my
It takes a little
domain,
bit of time. Also, it
which
depends. Like if you have to, once you send more than 5,000 emails, they'll consider you a bulk sender, and then it might start showing up here too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you click on like, there it is. I think if you click on,
like
I think if you just click,
like this.
yeah, if you just click on the name, there you go. So you got spam rate at the top. You could click on that where it says spam rate. You can click on that little drop down. You can see like your IP reputation, like a domain reputation. Yeah. So you probably just haven't sent enough emails for them. I mean, how many emails are you sending like per month?
It's a good question. I don't know if I don't send a ton. I do have a decent list of like prospective clients and like acquisition entrepreneurs. I imagine maybe this just takes some time to populate since
Yeah.
I quite literally just added it in.
Oh yeah, then okay, that'd be it then for sure.
Yeah.
It'll show up then. But yeah,
Maybe we'll come back to it if data starts populating.
yeah. But again, that's what I would ask people because if they don't have that set up, it just means to me that their team isn't, they might not be technically savvy. You know, it's just one of those things like you don't have to be an expert of it. But if you ask that question, um, it'll kind of catch people off guard because they'll be like, oh, they kind of know what, you know, most people don't ask that question.
Yeah, so this is super valuable because this is free. So
Yeah.
Google Postmaster, I quite literally just Googled it and threw in my company domain name and it got
Yeah,
verified
it's
within about 30
yeah, depending
seconds.
on
So
where it's set up, yeah, it can if you're already on Google as the host, it'll do it really quick. And if not, you just have to add like a little code to your website. It takes like 5 minutes and you can get it set up, but it's good.
cool. I had a question come in that said, how do you decide the right touch point that strikes a balance between top of mind versus annoying? So appreciate the question. What do you think about that, Ben?
That's a great question. I mean, so to answer this question, I got started in marketing like maybe 7 years ago, and I started with paid traffic, and then I quickly got into the world of copywriting because I realized like I was bringing people to a website and they weren't converting, and it sort of led me down that road. And that's where I think that with touch points, this is always like a big fear people have too, is like, oh, I don't want to send too many emails because it's going to be annoying and people don't want to see it. Um, and that's true if you're only sending like promotional emails all the time, like sales or things like that. If you're sending emails that are like valuable to people or they're fun or entertaining, people don't mind. Like I have a client where, you know, we've sent like, this is no joke. I was writing for someone that we were doing maybe 20, 30 emails a month about belts. And these, you know, it's kind of like a boring thing, but like we were coming up with unique stories about the belts or like just like random things happening in the day and like relating back to it. Like I was writing about they were specifically selling belts for like guns, like concealed carry stuff like that. So we'd find like a testimonial or something that was like some 60-year-old woman that was saying how she liked it because she could wear like yoga pants with it or something, you know, stuff like that. So like just finding these like weird things and like sharing it with people. That way it's kind of fun. So like when they open the email, they know it's like something interesting, it's entertaining or valuable. So I think if you're mixing it up like that, it's really not an issue. Like I'm on some, it also depends where you are. I think if you're sending 2 to 4 emails a week, it's probably good. You know, if you're in a different space, you could get, I have some people, I'm on other marketers lists, they send daily. But it's always, I don't always read it, but I see their name in my inbox. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a funny story. So I think as long as it's valuable, entertaining, that's a good place. And another tip I have is like take all your, if you have customer feedback, like I always do this, like you export everything and then you can like save it in a spreadsheet. And like even before this call, I was like putting together an email and I was just like going through and I set up like a filter so you can rank it by character count. I've pulled out reviews of like 3,000 words from people that like you could never like AI could never make a story like this, you know? So it's those like if you just go through your reviews, you'll see what people are talking about. You'll understand it. I think that's the other point too, is if you're in touch with your market and you know what people are talking about, like what are their desires, what are their fears, their objections, you should have a pretty core base of like maybe 3 or 4 topics you could talk about every time and people are going to be happy.
Yeah, and that's a good one. And it's kind of copyright and like storytelling. That's sort of, again, I'm a DIY, definitely not a marketing professional, but I have found that, interesting stories, regardless of the industry you work in, tend to perform better. It's funny you said the belt. What other kind of marketing campaigns have you done for some of your other clients or industries? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, my absolute favorite that I worked with was Dude Wipes. I got to work with them for a year. And that is an example of like, if you get on their email list, there's them. Another brand that's just like absolutely insane is called Shinesty. They do like, it's like they started with underwear, but they do apparel now. There's actually an even more, there's one called like Alaskan Salt Company. And they actually have a disclaimer before you get on their email list because like the emails they send are, they sell salt, but like the emails are just like wild. Like abs like sometimes like, they're entertaining and fun, but they do talk about like kind of silly stuff and but they warn you about that. But like for example, Dude Wipes, that was one where, we're writing about, wipes for your behind. So it's like I would come to them with ideas and we'd write about things like that. And they were the only client I had where like I would send something and they'd be like, oh, make it a little bit more extreme, change like this, don't say like poop, say like crap or something. I don't know. It was, you know, fun like that. But I think that's one. But then there's also things where it's like maybe I wouldn't say boring, but maybe a little more common. So I've had like supplement products too. And again, that's just for me, it's like trying to understand the product. What stories can we talk about? Maybe like the ingredients. Is there some like unique mechanism that only their product has? So like I was working with they do like kind of like vegan supplements, but they had like some capsule that had like special microgreens or something. So we could talk about that. So just like trying to be curious about the product and then the market. And then I think if you always just like start with the problems people have, it makes it a lot easier. And then another one I actually did recently was they sell install kits for your Corvette or for like other cars that like make the doors open vertically. And like that was a cool one too. And because I didn't know anything about it. So like I had to research about it and like, the top 10 questions people have about it. And we just kind of like went down the list and like, okay, you got your $100,000 Corvette, like you're gonna put these doors on, like what are the questions going through their mind and things like that. And again, that's where AI can be super helpful. You can just be like, what are some objections here? How would you counter them? And then you can kind of get thinking about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. As a longtime Shark Tank fan, they kind of made the scene. At least, Dude Wipes with the one of the sharks partnered with them, and they've
Yeah.
exploded. So, were you writing like the copyright for their emails?
Yeah, it was. They let me do that. That was like
Awesome.
maybe 2000. It was like the first agency I worked at. So maybe like 2021, I think. I was with them for a year. And then they ended up taking marketing in-house. But yeah, I was writing all the copy for that.
Interesting. Yeah, it's see, would you since you have a lens into like the larger corporations and businesses, so are most of these people bringing it, to an agency like yours and then maybe in-house? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's funny actually. So my newsletter is called Retention Recipes. You can like find it, but that was what I wrote about actually this week, which is like 'cause I had a client who they said, "Hey, we're going to take it in-house." And I just kind of talked about like when does it make sense? Maybe when does it not make sense? And I think if you're going to make it make sense, you should probably be doing like maybe 30 to $50 million a year and up because it's really kind of a team thing. It's hard to find someone who can do the copywriting, the designing, the technical piece, the strategy, has experience with like direct mail, SMS, email. Like there's like maybe 7 or 8 different kind of skills. So these really big companies that bring it in-house, like maybe Dude Wipes or down here in Atlanta, like Spanx was hiring, they have like maybe 4 or 5 people on their team that are handling all of that. So you need to really be committed to building out a team and you can't just try to go hire some like junior person to handle it and think everything is going to be okay. That's almost like it's almost like trying to draft like a quarterback for like NFL. It's like it's hard to do. It's hard to find one person that can just like lead a franchise. So I think it you can do it, but it's really tricky, and you have to be ready to build a team. And then yeah, so agencies I think are good to use up until a point. Um, if you're like a lot of the brands I work with are like maybe high 7 figures and eight figures and up. And for them, it's just a little bit more convenient just to have someone handle it and run the show. But like Dude Wipes, when they wanted to take it in house, it's like they reached a point where they were like, we just kind of want our team to do it because they understand the brand voice maybe a little better, the products, and also just like the speed of it too. Because if you need an email to go out like today, um, I can do that for some of my clients, but sometimes with other bigger agencies, it's harder to do that. So in-house, it's the speed thing, familiarity with the product, and then just like you kind of have that team, and when they're working really well, it's good. But we also have people that have an in-house team and they bring an agency in, like my agency in, just to kind of help out with the execution, so they can kind of step back and focus on something else. So I did that with like a furniture company based out of Colorado. So same thing. They had a head of retention marketing maybe was his title. And we just came in and we were like executing. So he could just step back and like, you know, look at the big picture.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's super valuable, and um, it is hard to kind of that transferability, you know, again, as I've DIY'd a lot of it, the email and then the marketing and then like the copyright, which, when I think copyright, my first thought was, copyrights for like movies. And now it's like copyright, like the actual writing and making sure
Yeah.
that makes sense. So like these are sort of some of the questions that I would say a lot of people don't know, especially like new business owners or some of these legacy owners, they might not even know what copyright is. So if for those who are looking to buy a business that has
Yeah.
none of this, like how do you even get started?
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
should we flip to the overhaul, maybe?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So
The
let's talk about the
overhaul.
marketing overhaul.
Yeah, these are my favorite because like my absolute favorite clients are like one I have working with right now, and then a few that I've worked with over the past where you come in and there's just like so much opportunity. Because we talked about the horror story, but the flip side is like um kind of the opportunity. So for me, it's like if I see a brand like kind of the big pieces I'm looking for like huge quick wins is always going to be they're not sending enough regular emails. That's going to be like the first one. The next one after that is like they're missing automations. And then the next one after that would be like the automations aren't long enough, so you can extend those touch points. And if you have like kind of those three things sitting in front of you, you can like very quickly scale it up. So like for example, this what I did here. So one brand, like probably my favorite like success story was I worked with them a few years ago, an apparel brand. They were already kind of built out. They have like big box retail and they had a good online presence, but they just didn't send any emails, like nothing, like maybe one campaign a month, one automation. So like the first thing I did was like a big audit of the whole account. And that's when I discovered like, I was like, first of all, we need to get you off of, they were on MailChimp. I'm like, we need to get you off that because it doesn't integrate with Shopify. I'm not, you can use whatever platform you want, but that was just like going to be a hindrance to like their, what they wanted to do. And then the very first thing we did was like, all right, we need to build out a campaign calendar to send. We just started at 2 campaigns a week just to kind of get like a good cadence going there. And then since we were bringing them into a new platform, we had to kind of just like work with some deliverability, which means like basically like I don't get into the nitty gritty on it, but like you can't bring over a brand new list and email every single person from day one. Like you have to start with like your most engaged group and then like kind of gradually warm it up and then you're good to go. And then the biggest one was getting that workflow for like email creation. And that's again like the when you take it in-house is like you need to have that workflow like kind of like just locked in. So you can go from an idea to an email in like, I don't know, a day, 2 days, something like that. So that was like kind of the first step of it. And then like the next step was just like the automation leak. So again, these guys didn't have anything. They didn't have a welcome email for people who, well, maybe they had like one email. So they had like one email you put in your address, you get a coupon, but nothing after that. They had like no checkout abandons. They didn't have anything for after the purchase to like follow up with people and give them maybe see if they want other clothes or just see how their experience was. Because again, you're trying to like that's kind of the customer service element. Like after someone buys something, you don't just want to like hit them with a coupon right away. It's like, oh, like, did you like it? Here's some tips how you can use it better. Just trying to like make their experience a little bit nicer. And then what else did we do? Like a new email pop-up. That's a great way to just like boost people coming onto your list. Either the offer is going to be the biggest way to move that, but maybe you just you try a slightly different design or the timing. Um, and then for me, like I've been big on now, like setting up surveys to talk to people. So I did this for a client I'm working with now, but we do a survey like right after someone buys, just kind of ask them some free form questions. We ask after someone's been on the list for like, I think 60 days and they didn't purchase, like, oh, you're just curious, like why didn't you buy? And so we have like a very strategic point where we're trying to just understand what people are thinking. And then you can take that directly and like put it back into your automations. So like, oh, people don't want to buy this bread product because they don't know about the taste. So we could talk about the taste, or we could talk about like the guarantee, something like that. And then when you kind of ramp it up, it's like month 3. That's when I would go after again, like kind of going back to the list being like your 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 big asset is like offers to win back customers that have churned out. So that'd be a big one too. You go in, you find everyone who's like, I don't know, made a purchase at least once in the last year, but they haven't bought in like, I don't know, 60 days. And you could come up with some offer just for them. So you don't have to give your whole list like 15% off, but maybe just try to get them back to restart that buying cycle. And then another tactic to this too is like direct mail. So a lot of people are afraid of unsubscribes, but with direct mail, like that doesn't matter. You could, someone unsubscribes from your emails, like, okay, you can take that same list for people who unsubscribed and send a postcard to their house with the same offer and try to win them back. And it's super easy. I love the platform Postpilot. Integrates with like Shopify, and you can use it for a bunch of other cases. But there's plenty of ways to do that, and you can do that. And then that's when I'd probably do like the A/B testing on not everything. I think people get a little carried away with A/B testing, but like super critical points, like the first three emails, the checkout abandon, and then things like that. And then at day 90, that's when I would look at like trimming the list, which is like if you're taking over a brand and like again, maybe they had like a million people on their email list, by day 90, you've already sent like let's say like 20 or 30 campaigns. You're gonna see like, all right, there's like 20% of these people that just are not opening, are not clicking, they've never bought. It's time to just get them off the list because you just want to keep the list clean so you don't have problems with Gmail. And also, some platforms charge based on how many people you have. So you could save yourself, a few $1,000s if you get rid of people that just are dead weight.
Yeah. So how do you, because I struggle with trimming my list, what do you look for? Is it simply like, because I've had, I guess the flip side is I've had customers who have have what I've thought not engaged at all, and then they eventually come back to me a year later. Like, how do
Oh yeah.
you, what's your criteria?
I think it depends the business you're in. Like if you're doing maybe for your business and you're doing more lead stuff, you could probably leave people on there longer because it might be way more valuable. Like one customer could be worth, tens thousands of dollars more. If it's something like a consumer brand, like Shopify or something like that, for me, it'd be faster. So I usually set it as like, okay, actually within a year, I'd say like if someone's been on my list for more than a year, they've never bought anything, and they've received like 50 emails and they've never opened or clicked, that's when I'll move them into something I call a sunset flow or sunset automation. And you move them in there and you can just send them like a very simple email like, hey, like, looks like you're not reading the emails. If you want to stay on our list, like just click this link and just kind of give them a last like Hail Mary. And most of the time, like you're gonna get like a few people to do it. But if someone's been on that long and they haven't purchased anything and they're not active on the site, like you can see they're not coming to the site, they're not opening or clicking, they're probably gone. And it's sort of the trade-off because it's counterintuitive. You'd think like, oh, if there's a million people, if I send a million emails every time, like it's gonna just revenue's gonna go up, everything's kind of gonna go up. But you send a million emails, then Gmail's like, okay, like 50% of these people didn't even open it. A bunch of them clicked spam. You're not like, we don't trust you anymore. So like now whenever you try to send again, like they're going to send your email straight to spam. So now you're like in a worse spot than where you started. So that's always like the balance. But yeah, I think a year is what I give people. It depends too, list growth, how fast things are growing. You could be a little more aggressive with how you do it.
Yeah, that's a good overview. What are you using right now for like CRM, email? Like what does that look like right now?
Yeah, so most of my clients, people I work with are on Shopify, so they use Klaviyo. I also use SendLane. Attentive. I know, like was it Active Campaign for some people that might be like have like a custom site or doing more like lead gen. And there's dozens. There's always ones like new platforms I'm seeing every day. I know HubSpot. I have one client that we're moving. They're kind of phasing that. They're interesting. They're actually phasing out of e-commerce and they've been a SaaS company, but they're just going to go all in on SaaS. So we're eventually going to be all in HubSpot for them, just because it's going to be sales led. So just getting demos booked, things like that. So that's one that I have some experience with. Um, I've used what's the other one?
What's like a favorite you like recently?
Uh, I'd say Klaviyo. It's probably the one of the best ones. OmniSend's pretty cool too. That's like an up and coming one. SendLane's also good. But yeah, back to my time as a live sound engineer, like um, they all do the same thing. It's just a matter of like quirks and like how fast you can do certain things. So like I can use them all. It just depends like how fast I can go in them.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kind of curious. Everyone has some biases. So is Klaviyo like a HubSpot or is it something different?
Um, I think they want to be sort of like a HubSpot. They're getting towards that. They bring in stuff all the time, but it's just um yeah, it has a database. I wouldn't say it's a true CRM because it's not. It's geared towards D2C e-commerce. So it's not like you're tracking like, oh, okay, this person joined. Now they're moving into like down the pipeline and things like that. But yeah, you can do a lot of like segmentation in there and all the automations and campaigns. So it's for e-commerce, that's like probably number one.
Got it. That's helpful. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I'm currently on HubSpot. I probably don't use it nearly as much as I should, especially for how much I pay on a monthly basis. So I know why some people will move off of HubSpot at this point.
Sure.
I'm already so locked in. It would probably cost me like 5 times the amount of money to get off of it from like an opportunity cost. So, yeah.
Yeah, migrations are hard. I've done that many times for people, and it's always hard. Even if you're coming off of like Mailchimp and it's hard, especially something as complex as HubSpot or like Salesforce. Like, man, it's yeah, there's gonna be some pain for a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Um, so we're gonna just take a quick pause. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to tune into some of my upcoming sessions, I'm going to be sitting down with Matt Bowles. And we're going to be, Matt's a exceptional M&A attorney. So if you have questions around what are your rights and recourses after the deal, feel free to scan that QR code. Um, Later in August, I'm going to be holding a webinar. We're going to be talking about deal structuring and financing deals. So if you're thinking about buying a business, selling, or refinancing, we're going to be talking about how you structure some of those options. You can find both of these on um, my LinkedIn under the events tab or scan the QR code for a free recording. So let's talk about KPIs.
Yeah.
Let's touch on that. I know we talked about open rate, close rate. When you think about KPIs, what comes top of mind?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. So for me, like the big three, I mean, like when I audit the accounts, I'm looking in there, like what I'm trying to see is for me is just email revenue over time and seeing is it growing, is it going down, is it staying flat, just to kind of look at that. I like to see like what percentage of revenue is coming from email. Because for some brands, I guess depending on the space, it could be like 20 to 40% of the revenue. And to me, that's like kind of an efficiency indicator because like I've audited some accounts where they're doing like 70% of their revenue from email. And to me, that just means that they're not spending enough on acquisition. If it's that high, it's like you need to be spending way more because it should be coming down a little bit. So that's just a way to understand like, all right, is there kind of some juice there? And like I was just talking with someone actually this week who's LOI to buy a nutrition company, and when they were just kind of telling me about what they saw, and it was that like 80% of their revenue comes from direct mail and email. They use direct mail as a bit of an acquisition channel, so it's about 40-50% from email. But to me, I mean, I said it to him, and he saw it too. He's like, "There's opportunity here to scale this up because they're not really that aggressive on the acquisition side." And that's something I would agree with too. So if you see like there's more than 50% coming from email, I'd get excited because that means there's room to scale. I think another big one is list growth. Is the list growing like consistently? And then kind of to get in more in depth on that is like customer lists, like what, if there's a million people, what percentage are customers, and is that growing as well too? Because that kind of goes back to the question we had, which is, are people enjoying the emails or the text you're sending them? You know, with a lot of my clients, like the customer list is always growing. So we're never losing more people than we're gaining. Sometimes around Q4 when it's like Black Friday and like people are just like fed up with all the emails going around, then you might have like a few weeks here and there where you're losing some people, but generally you want to see that list always going up, especially the customers. And then another big one I like to see is returning customer revenue. Like what does that look like? Like one of the clients I work with, half of all the revenue comes from returning customers. And that's like our North Star. Like we're always looking at that. They don't really care about total revenue. They just want to see that number because they just try to break even on the first sale. So they're just like locked in on that. And that's a good indicator too of, it also depends on the type of business. I have a client that sells bikes and like returning customer revenue is tiny, but it'll also, it should be a good indicator based on the business. And then there's a few others that I think are nice to have, but sometimes it's hard to get this data because you need like a more like a someone who's maybe uses, I don't know, like a SQL, I think is the database or something like that, or you need like a bigger tool, but like repeat purchase rate by cohort. So you could see like how that changes like week to week or over months. Everyone who came in November, like what are they doing? Um, I think another good one is like lifetime value over a 3 to 6 month period, and that will help you kind of understand like how much you can spend to acquire a customer with your cost for acquisition, things like that. Again, sometimes it's hard to get those numbers, but if you have them, it'll help you as well. And then my favorite one is to go in and just like start like bucketing customers, like customers who made one purchase, two, three, four, and up, and just trying to see like how many are in each one. And there's always going to be some sticking point where you see like, okay, obviously 1 to 2 is a big drop off, but if you're like, man, if we get people from purchase 3 to 4, like it's holds steady, like then you can kind of zoom in on that and be like, all right, what are we going to do to get people from that third purchase like over? Because once they hit the fourth purchase, like they could unsubscribe from your emails and they might keep buying anyways.
Yeah, certainly. I like your points and kind of how you think about it. The email revenue over time and like the tracking features, I imagine a lot of that's incorporated already in some of these CRMs. Is that right to say? Like when I think about my revenue, I'm not sure I would be able to pinpoint like an email tied to revenue. So like how does that actually work? Like what does that look like on the
Yeah,
inside?
yeah, it can be tricky for maybe if you're doing demos or like lead generation like that. I know for like Shopify, things like that, it's already built into the platform. And you can see there's tools like Triple Whale or even Google Analytics. You can see everything. So yeah, in a case where you're doing lead gen, I think that's where you could probably have to use like the client I'm working with that's transitioning more to sales led for SaaS. They use HubSpot, but we have everything like tagged with a UTM like in the email. So if someone like clicks on the email, anything like that, it should hopefully get passed along to that. You can also ask people like, oh, how did you like, how did you come here? Something like that to see how it works. So I think, yeah, you need to have definitely a system with it. I know with lead gen, it can be a little harder to quantify. And I know I have another friend who actually a tribe member who does some of the business purchasing and things like that. And they know sometimes you have to do forensics to figure it out. But I think if you can just streamline the links and like maybe have some internal systems to just verify where people are coming from, it can help. A little manual, but it will maybe you do it like once every quarter just to kind of get a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, no, I like that. So as we kind of wrap up in closing, we're tricking on the hour mark. You know, any other things you kind of wanted to cover? I know we didn't get to all the slides, but how to spot some huge growth and opportunity. Did you want to cover some of these questions on instantly? Like, what do you think's a good closing slide?
Good closing slide. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we kind of touched on that one. I think maybe like what's the one after this? That list one. I think that list one is huge opportunities. I mean, again, like kind of the story I had like when we were going through the like setting everything up is like, there's some of these brands where if you come in and like a client I'm working with now, like they're not sending campaigns, nothing set up. I've had a few, like one like that where we set everything up and it's like month one, we flipped the switch, everything turned on, started sending emails, and it was like an extra $500,000 a month, just like kind of out of nowhere. So I think there's also like pretty big upside for people who are if you're there might be red flags, but on the flip side, it's like wow, you could turn this into a pretty profitable channel. I think that's a kind of a good way to leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. So two things in closing, and then we'll open it up for any questions. If you have any questions for Ben or I, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll get to them. So what are the two big takeaways of why this is important? Who can use it? We'll kind of we'll end on that one.
Yeah, I think especially if you're looking to buy or sell your business, it's important to just understand this, especially I think on the buying side. Um, because you could, again, like that meat horror story, you could be walking into a business that like looks like everything looks great on paper, P&L sheet looks nice, and then you buy the business and you realize like there's been a massive problem. Um, that you have to fix, and now you're kind of like scrambling. So I think if you know kind of what to ask people beforehand, it can help you kind of understand what to walk into. Like that person I'm speaking with now, who's LOI to purchase the company, they were just kind of like they already had a sense of what they were walking into, and it wasn't going to be like a surprise. So I think if you just ask those questions to whoever you're buying it from, it'd be good. And then on the flip side, if you're selling the company, like these are places you could probably improve to make your business a lot more attractive to sell. Be like, oh, look, when someone comes, oh, we have an email list of 30,000 buyers. Like if you come with those things, like, oh, 50% of people come back after purchase one, it's going to make it probably way more attractive. You could probably have a better valuation, I would imagine.
Yeah, all good points. I think when it comes to like acquisitions, I would say this is probably a blind spot people overlook. Um, Speaking from experience, I know a lot of businesses, people will buy the assets of the company. And a lot of times, what gets left out is this sort of marketing automation funnel, which was
Mm.
created by the owner, but it's not actually transferred over at the time of purchase. So the challenge is they have all these email marketing. For example, let's say they were using HubSpot, but it was on the owner's personal email, so it wasn't related to the company. I've actually seen this quite a bit where
Wow.
all of a sudden the email marketing just kind of halts. It's like a screeching halt.
Yeah.
Um, so I always actually bring this up now that I did a few deals which ran into this issue of during the closing week, one of the things is like transferring over all of the automations and the emails and the marketing so that it keeps flowing because especially in like asset sales, those things can be left out. So,
That's
that's just
fascinating. I never would have thought about that. Like that's the technical thing that like, yeah. Yeah, that would be huge. I mean, if it's someone, it's not part of the technical asset, and then like day one, you have to rebuild everything from zero. That'd be that'd be bad.
yeah, and it's things like even, w- a lot of owners are kind of like the sales, like business development director, like the CEO of all sales. So their phone, like their actual phone number is quite valuable too. But
Oh
they have
wow.
had that personal phone number they've used for family and business for 30 years. So a lot of times post close, their phone stops ringing and you realize that all the potential customers were just calling this guy's cell phone.
Oh my goodness.
That's something
Wow.
else that, some of my buyers will reach out and like sort of, politely ask for the number and kind of port that over to their phone system because that is like a key asset. So just kind of little things like that actually move the needle and come up a lot in these small businesses.